Looking at this digital reconstruction of a medieval dungeon, the iron instruments and harsh shadows likely evoke a familiar feeling. We tend to imagine historical executions and torture as acts of unhinged, chaotic bloodlust, driven by primitive minds acting on brute impulse. The historical record tells a different story. In the archives of ancient empires and medieval states, the use of extreme physical force is almost entirely stripped of random savagery. The sheer variety of these methods, ranging from specific mechanical angles to precise schedules of isolation, points to an organized, deliberate approach to suffering that goes far beyond blind violence. Every specific stake, wheel, and blade throughout history was engineered to solve a specific societal, military, or legal problem. Understanding why these methods existed requires us to look past the blood and decode the specific designs humans use to control one another. One category of punishment is utility cruelty. State authorities frequently needed to inflict strict discipline on laborers or soldiers, but they faced a structural problem. They could not afford to permanently disable the physical utility of their own workforce. Bastinado illustrates this calculation. By striking the soles of a person's feet with a heavy rod or whip, the executioner causes intense, crippling agony. Yet it rarely leaves visible, permanent physical damage, ensuring the victim can eventually return to work. In the Yakuza practice of yubitsume, an offending group member cuts off a portion of their own little finger. The core mechanism here is psychological, a self-inflicted sacrifice demanded to prove loyalty and apology to the group, distinct from state-mandated discipline. In other cases, the state ignored the physical body and focused the punishment on the total destruction of a person's social standing. This historical illustration captures the reality of tarring and feathering. While the hot pitch caused severe burns, the actual engineering of the punishment relied on public, theatrical humiliation. The victim is paraded, stripped of their dignity, and coated in feathers. These non-lethal methods prioritized behavioral control. They left the surviving victim physically intact to serve as a walking warning to the rest of society. When military and imperial powers faced existential threats, like cowardice on the battlefield or the breaking of sacred social taboos, they required an entirely different level of enforcement. This sketch illustrates Roman decimation, a strictly mathematical approach to military discipline. The unit was divided into tens, with one randomly selected. The remaining 9 executed their comrade, followed by forced banishment, permanently eradicating the threat of mutiny. Moving from military mathematics to absolute social taboos, the Romans deployed a punishment called poena culae for the crime of killing one's father. The condemned person was sewn into a heavy sack alongside live animals, typically a dog, a snake, a monkey, and a rooster, and then thrown into a body of water. The mechanics of this execution mirrored the unnatural chaos of parricide. Centuries later, Emperor Basil II captured thousands of enemy troops and ordered nearly all of them blinded. He intentionally left just one partially sighted man in every group of 100 to guide the others home. He weaponized the survivors' trauma to such a degree that the rival ruler reportedly died from shock upon seeing his ruined army return. These deterrence methods were psychological weapons engineered to paralyze the minds of the survivors. At the absolute extreme of state power, the objective shifted. Here, authority sought absolute annihilation, turning execution into a terrifying public spectacle by manipulating the biological timeline of death. This engraving depicts blowing from a gun. Tied to the front of a cannon and fired upon, the concussive blast causes immediate death. This data visualization shows how brief that execution actually is, especially when compared to methods actively engineered to stretch the suffering out over days. The practice of Ling Chi, or death by 1,000 cuts, utilized surgical precision. Executioners sliced the victim repeatedly over an extended period, maximizing the duration of consciousness before the final fatal blow. The brazen bull took this concept a step further. Victims were locked inside a hollow metal bull with a fire lit underneath. The device converted their dying screams into a sensory, musical performance for the surrounding audience. Methods like scaphism, where a force-fed victim was exposed to insects in a stagnant pond, and immurement, sealing someone alive behind a solid wall, outsourced the killing. They relied on isolation and the slow forces of nature to finish the job. spectacle executions served a single purpose. They demonstrated to the public an absolute mastery over time, anatomy, and life itself. Every physical tool of punishment functions as a sociological artifact. This illustration of the rack shows exactly how calculated it was. It's a utilitarian machine designed to extract hidden information. By pulling limbs in opposite directions, leverage stretched the ligaments, breaking the mind's resolve before the body was destroyed. Rulers constantly commission new horrors to maintain their grip on authority, and the sheer variety of these devices points to their deep underlying insecurities. The historical record of human cruelty reveals the chilling, terrifying creativity of the human mind.